Hi, happy people. Welcome to another wonderful day of World History 101. This is chapter 14, and we are going to discuss nomadic empires and Eurasian integration. So, this chapter is all about the Turks and the Mongols. And both of these people represent Central Asian nomads or nomads from the steppes of Central Asia. Same thing. All right, so let's talk about the Turks first. So the Turkish people are organized in clans and tribes, and oftentimes they fight each other. As a result of being organized in clans, they never organize into a single united group. All right. You also need to know it's a lot of sunlight streaming through, so I apologize. All right, let's talk about this nomadic economy and society. So, nomadic groups in Central Asia, they are pastoralist. The aridity or the dryness. So, anytime you hear the word arid, ARID, it's kind of like the deodorant, right? Like arid, extra dry. Like arid just means dry. So the aridity of the climate makes intensive agriculture impossible. So the nomads heavily engage in trade with settled people. The nomads heavily engage in trade with settled people. They engage in small scale trade, but sometimes they do engage in long distance trade. The Turkish nomads lead caravans across Central Asia to settle societies from China and the Mediterranean basin. The nomadic society is going to be divided into two social classes. Those two social classes are the nobles and the commoners. And what we're going to see is a fluidity. So if you're born into the commoner class, you're not stuck in being a commoner. You could potentially move up based on your courage in warfare. So again, society is broken up into two social classes. That's going to be nobility and commoners. Broken up into two social classes, nobility and commoners. The nobles do very little governing, and the clans and the tribes, they conduct their own affairs. So noble status is hereditary, as long as the heir can provide appropriate leadership. But remember, there is a fluidity to the class system. So commoners can win recognition and become nobility because of their courage in warfare. Let's talk about nomadic religion. So the earliest religion of the Turkish people centers around shamans, Shamans. Shamans are religious specialists who are believed to possess supernatural powers. With these supernatural powers, they're able to communicate with gods and spirits of nature. Oftentimes, the shamans petition the gods on behalf of their community, on behalf of the people within their community for protection. Cool. All right. So outside of shamanism, that earliest religion of the Turkish people, we also see the rise of Islam around the 10th century. So the Turks living near the Abbasid Empire are going to start converting to Islam around the 10th century. And that makes perfect sense because the Abbasids were an Islamic empire, dynasty. So again, trade routes, migratory nature of the Turks, we're going to see Islam spread as a religion to all of these various lands. Let's talk about military organization. So the Turkish people have extensive military power because of their advanced archery and equestrian skills. So equestrian skills just means that you're good on horseback. You can ride a horse and bike. They're well trained. They have very organized cavalry as well. Expansion occurs under their Khan, Khan. A Khan is a ruler who rules indirectly. So instead of him ruling directly, he rules through leaders of allied tribes. So the Khan, Khan, is a generic term for a ruler, and he rules indirectly through leaders of allied tribes. Turkish empires in Persia, Anatolia, and India. So as you look at the Seljuk Turks, I think your book spells it Saljuk. They could spell it Seljuk. It's still the Turks, the Seljuk Turks. Seljuk Turks in the Abbasid Empire, the Abbasid Empire. So from mid-8th to mid-10th century, many Turkish people lived along the border of the Abbasid dynasty. By the end of the 10th century, we know that many of the Seljuk Turks served in the Abbasid armies. Pay attention to the Seljuk forces defeating the Byzantine army at Manziker, Manzikert. So 1071, we have the Seljuk forces defeating the Byzantine army at Manziker. As a result, the Seljuk Turks took over Anatolia. They removed the Byzantine leaders and they established their own political and social institutions. By the 1450s, Byzantine and Christian Anatolia had become Turkish Islamic territory. A comparison you could do with the Seljuk Turks who live along the Abbasid border, it would be like the Germanic people of this unit who lived near the Roman empires. Remember in the chapter 9, like that brief 3 pages of chapter 9, we talked about how the Visigoths and the Huns lived on the outskirts, and the Huns pushed the Visigoths in, and the Visigoths ultimately conquered the Roman Empire. Let's talk about Mahmud, Mahmud of Ghazni. So Mahmud of Ghazni is an Islamic leader of the Turkish people. He leads the Turkish people on raids in northern India. Initially, he was only concerned with plunder. He only wanted to steal. But ultimately, he is going to become more interested in permanent rule. Mahmud, Mahmud of Ghazni. So by the 13th century, the Turkish Sultanate, a sultan is a king, a ruler, and a sultanate is what the sultan rules, like a caliphate is what the caliph rules, same concept. So by the 13th century, the Turkish Sultanate of Delhi has claimed authority over all of northern India. They want to conquer southern India, but they're going to be unsuccessful. They tried to destroy the influence of Buddhism and Hinduism in northern India, and they encourage the conversion to Islam. So eventually, Islam is going to spread to northern India. Let's talk about the Mongol empires and Genghis Khan. So when you talk about the Mongols, when you think about them, they too are Central Asian nomads. By the 13th and 14th centuries, the Mongols are going to establish themselves as the most powerful people on the Central Asian steppes. By the early 14th century, they've built the largest empire that the world has ever seen at that time. Anytime you think about the Mongols, you should think steppes of Central Asia, nomadic. They organize themselves in clans and tribes. Boom, cap. They're related to that guy named Genghis Khan or Chinggis Khan, whatever you want to call him, it is correct. Qenghis Khan, which just means ruler, and Chinggis, same person, Chinnggis, Chinggis Khan or Genghis Khan, same person. Genghis Khan, early 13th century, he's responsible for uniting the Mongol tribes into a single confederation. He unites the Mongols into an alliance that allows him to build the largest empire that the world has ever seen. His original name is Temujin, but he becomes known as Genghis Khan or Chinggis Khan, which means universal ruler. Genghis Khan is important because his policies strengthen the Mongols. So Genghis Khan is important because his policies are going to strengthen the Mongols. The first thing he does is he breaks up the tribes and he forces the men to join military units based on no tribal affiliation. So he's destroying that idea of loyalty to clan affiliation, and he's replacing that with loyalty to him. So again, he breaks up the tribe, Genghis Khan. His policies strengthen the Mongols. One, he breaks up the tribes and he forces the men to join military units that have no tribal affiliation. He chooses high military and political officials based on their talent and their loyalty to him. Again, he is destroying that idea of tribal and clan affiliation, and he's focusing on loyalty to himself. He builds his capital at Karakorum, Karakorum, Karakorum. So Karakorum's his capital. The most important institution of the Mongol state is their army. And even though their army is much smaller than other Eastern armies, they're still successful because of three things. One, because of their horseback skills, so their equestrian skills. Remember, Turks and Mongols are Central Asian nomads. They're pastoralists. Yeah, they're good on horses. So it makes perfect sense. So they're successful. The Mongols are successful because one, of their horseback skills. Two, because they are expert archers, like bow and arrow archers. And three, because they spare the lives of their enemies who give up without resistance. Genghis Khan extends his rule to northern China. He's in Persia. He's all throughout the Central Asian steppes. He even establishes a Mongol capital in China at like modern day Beijing. We've already said he extends his rule to Persia. He even destroyed the Khanate system. Do you remember the Khanates? The Khanates were those underground Persian canals that brought fresh water to our agricultural crops, the irrigation system. Yeah. By his death, Genghis Khan had united the Mongols. He established Mongol authority throughout Central Asia. He extended Mongol control to northern China, and Persia. But this is the thing about Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan is a really great conqueror, but he fails to establish centralized rule over the lands that he conquered. So oftentimes, yeah, you conquered this land, but the Mongols are not going to be able to successfully keep the land underneath their reign, underneath their rule. So after Genghis Khan's death, his empire is going to split into four parts. Sorry, that was like Alexander, right? So after Genghis Khan's death, his empire splits into four parts. It splits among his sons and his grandsons into like these four regional kingdoms. We've got Chagatai, we've got the Golden Horde, which is in Russia. You've got the Ilkhanate, which is in Persia. And of course, you've got the Yuan dynasty, which is in China. I only need you to know three. I need you to know Yuan, Y-U-A-N, Kublai Khan's dynasty in China. I need you to know the Ilkhanate in Persia. And I need you to know the Golden Horde in Russia. All right, so Kublai Khan. Let's talk about Kublai Khan first. No, I tell you what, I'll break this up. So we'll start our next part 2 with the Mongol empires after Genghis Khan. So lovelies, this is the conclusion of part 1, chapter 14. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you're having a great day. Bye.